Today, Nate, in this video, you wanted to talk about conflict, armed conflict specifically.
Yeah, about war and conflict. I've thought extensively about war and conflict. When I was in my 20s, I very much fancied myself an anti-war activist, specifically against the Iraq and Afghanistan invasions, and I produced music videos and other content against the Iraq invasion. So I've been very immersed in studying war for a long time, and I love to study the history of the Cold War and other conflicts. And I've also read I read military newspapers, sometimes the Air Force Times and other publications from America, because you've got to know your enemy. And I've always been against the military-industrial complex. You've got to understand who you're challenging. That's what Sun Tzu said. Just quickly, I want to say we've got the perfect picture up today for this. Army toys, which epitomises how we get children into war very young. So get straight into the war and conflict. Part of me thinks it's like an instinctual thing which has developed since we were monkeys, because you see that monkeys do this as well. They have conflicts in their communities and they have wars and battles. So some part of me thinks that war and battle and conflict is just a part of how the natural world works. But about war and conflict, obviously, I used to have this view that we had to strive towards world peace, and I still do have that view that we should absolutely strive towards world peace, but my views in the matter have developed a bit in the last 10 years. So what I've come to realise is I don't think it's practical to think we can achieve this permanent state of peaceful hegemony where everyone is getting along and not disagreeing, and not in conflict, whether it's individuals or whether it's nations conflicting with each other. I don't see that we can achieve this state of hegemony, of peace and prosperity for a permanent for the remainder of history, because the world is random. And there are disagreements because people are individuals, and it all boils down to the fact that two people are two individuals and they don't think the same. So there's a couple of ways you could achieve this ongoing state of world peace, through diplomacy at the United Nations preferably, but you could achieve it through some state or other force brainwashing everyone on the planet to think exactly the same without any different opinions, and to all be brainwashed under this one way of thinking which is very compliant and about peace and unity, and then nobody would ever disagree. And then if anyone disagrees, the one world government will come in and re-educate them so that they don't disagree. Then nobody ever disagrees with anyone, so there's no more war or conflict. And the other part of that is the only other way to achieve this state of ongoing peace in the world is to have one world government. And to abolish democracy as well. You'd have to abolish democracy because democracy facilitates disagreements and conflicts between people. So if you want to end disagreements and conflicts, you've got to abolish democracy and have a totalitarian state rule over everyone and insist that everyone get along. And it has to be a global totalitarian state that rules over the whole planet so that there isn't any conflict. So what I've realised is conflict is natural, and you see a lot of conflict in animal communities as well. There is fighting, there is arguing, and animals, depending on how big their brains are and what level of animal they are, they have social dynamics as well, and because they're individuals as well, and they battle to be the dominant one in the pack for survival, right? It's all about survival of the fittest in nature. So individuals in the pack fight to climb the social hierarchy, to be at the top, to ensure their own survival, and this is what causes conflict and war, and this is an ongoing part of nature. So the only way that you can stop that natural emergence of conflict, which is what leads to warfare, is to, like I said, brainwash everyone to think exactly the same way, or have one world government, because you have to control this. This just happens. Conflict just happens, and it happens a lot, and there are various reasons why conflict happens. A lot of conflict and war is because of religion, a lot of it is because of dominance and people wanting to take over the world, and that's the other thing, as long as there are these dominant personality types, actors out there, and personality types in the world who seek dominance and power over others, there will be ongoing warfare, because as long as there are these psychopaths out there, and there are these personality types, they exist in the world and they emerge and we can have an argument about why psychopaths emerge, but we'll go into that in another video. But for now, there are these top personality types who seek to control and to hurt and to inflict suffering on others, and to take over the world. And as long as those personality types are going to continue to emerge in the population, then there's going to be a continuous threat of one of those personality types coming to a powerful position and initiating a war. So, and these people exist everywhere. They're in the workplace. You might meet someone in the workplace, you might not know if they could, they would take over the world. And they'll never let you know that if they could, they'd take over the world and persecute and kill people. But those sorts of personality types are everywhere. So again, I don't know now, after I've thought about it further, whether you can end war without huge state control. You need huge state control, and you need one world government, preferably the UN, and it can't be a democratic government either, because that just facilitates more conflict, which leads to, because if it's a democratic one world government, all it takes is for a bunch of the states to come together and say, we're severing from the Union, and then you've got war again, so you just get war again. So we can either all join the United Nations, and we can figure everything out through the United Nations. I'd prefer that option, that everyone be a part of the United Nations and we come together as a global community, and through diplomacy we figure out the way forward, and everyone gets a voice and a say in what that direction is. But really, there's just going to be more ongoing arguing about ideology and religion and all this crap that starts these wars, and people will break away from that union, and there will be more wars. So, how long do you expect to maintain world peace for? 1,000 years? I don't think it's going to happen, because these disputes come up for various reasons all throughout history. We see that these disputes come up that lead to war for various reasons, and people have personal wars between each other. People wars with neighbours. I've had wars with my neighbours. I've had a couple of problematic neighbours who've been abusive towards me over the last 10 years. One of the things that made me realise problems emerge, conflict emerges. I had abusive neighbours who were giving me crap for 2 years over nothing, and it's like a personal war between us. We're having a conflict, so it exists everywhere. So what I've come to realise, peace and stability is how the United Nations and world governments talk about world peace. They talk about stability, and it comes through control. It comes through controlling the global situation, the geopolitical situation, to prevent wars from breaking out. And that's what it's like when you talk about geopolitics. You have to talk about stability in the global environment. That's how UN employees think about this issue. So I've abandoned what I call now a bit more of a naive view of some peaceful utopia where we all coexist in harmony because we want to, because I just see that there are dangerous personality types out there, and that's what leads to conflict and war. And I've embraced more of a view that world peace will be achieved through stability, and that to some extent we have to enforce peace, because there are always actors emerging who want to destabilise things. So if you want peace, you really have to enforce it, and I think that's just the practical reality of human existence, given some of the characters that are out there and the way they behave. It's like, I wanted to point out quickly, I'm very upset about this guy in Myanmar about 3 years ago, because what he did is, he was a guy in the military. He was one of these personality types that feels entitled to take over people and to rule over people, and because he was already in the military and he was a general, he got all these buddies together and organised this coup, and in one day they rolled in on the capital of the country and just took over the country. And that's the reality of how random the world is. It just takes one guy to go, today, this year I'm going to coordinate all my military buddies and we're going to take over this country, and then it happens, and so you have to control guys like that who come in and seek to control other people. So it's, the view I take now on world peace is much more of a practical view about controlling bad actors. I don't see that we can just come together in unity like the hippies and spread peace and love and sing Kumbaya and suddenly coexist for the next 1,000 years, because there's too many bad actors in the world. So that's where I've reached with thinking about world peace and war and conflict, guys. So drop a comment and let me know what you think about what I've said. Thank you.